beyond the thunder and lightning, past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Greetings, welcome, and as always, thank you so much for joining us today. It is with incredible sadness that I say that Hubert Gerald Brown, best known during the Black freedom struggle as H. Rap Brown, who served as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense's Minister of Justice during a short-lived 6-month alliance between SNCC and the Black Panther Party. After converting to Islam, he became known as Imam Jamil Al Amin. He has returned to his Lord. He passed yesterday, the 23rd of November, at the age of 82. How significant was he? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Let's quickly look at a couple of today's headlines. The judge has tossed cases against James Comey and Ms. Letitia James, rules prosecutor appointment unlawful. The decision could end the prosecution of the former FBI director. The government could refile charges against the New York Attorney General Letitia James. A federal judge dismissed charges against Comey and Attorney General James today, delivering a critical blow to Trump's efforts to engineer persecutions of two of his prominent foes. U.S. District Judge Cameron McGowan Curie ruled that Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor overseeing both cases, had been unlawfully appointed to her position, and therefore indictments she secured against Comey and James must be thrown out. Curie denied the defendant's request to bar the Justice Department from seeking an indictment to indict them again, but Comey's case, however, could fall under the statute of limitations and not be allowed to be refiled. Two interesting things. One, this demonstrates once again the Trump administration appointing just totally incompetent people into positions of responsibility, and they may have been able to get a conviction on Comey. May have been able to, but now due to just outright incompetence, they've dropped that ball. Israel has killed 339 Palestinians in Gaza in ceasefire violations, and I thought there was a ceasefire. The health ministry in Gaza said Sunday that Israeli forces have killed at least 339 Palestinians during the ceasefire and have wounded 871 since October 11th as Israel continues to violate the U.S.-backed ceasefire without any accountability whatsoever. And finally, Airlines cancel flights to Venezuela after U.S. warning of, quote, worsening security situation. International airlines have continued to cancel flights to Venezuela after the U.S.'s Federal Aviation Administration issued a warning about flying near the country, a statement that came as the U.S. continues to move toward launching a war with the goal of ousting the democratically elected president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. FAA told pilots to exercise caution when flying in Venezuelan airspace due to, quote, worsening security situation and heightened military activity, end quote. My suggestion on how to solve this problem: stop trying to attack Venezuela. It's very simple. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. This worsening security situation is only because the United States policy and action are worsening the security situation. It's just that plain and simple. All right. On today's episode, the issue before us is the work of Imam Jamil Al Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, during the late 1960s, the 1980s, and the 1990s, with community-based and gang organization leaders, and the development of an urban peace treaty and policy initiative had tremendous positive impact. And after years of police harassment and spending years incarcerated on a life sentence on trumped up charges, now he's gone. To talk about this, let's turn to my guest. He is a Metro Washington, D.C. based human rights advocate, serves as director of operations for the Afia Foundation. He is El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. Brother Saalakhan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Leon. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
Let me just start with a very simple question. When you heard of the passing of Imam Al Amin, what came to your mind?
I felt a touch of sadness. I immediately reached out to family and close friends and associates of Imam Jamil, and I am honored to be considered one myself, to express my condolences. But I also felt there was a feeling of relief, a feeling of gratitude that this trial, this tremendous trial that Imam Jamil has been under for so many years unjustly, is now over. Mm-hmm. He's no longer a prisoner. He is free. And so it was a mix of those two feelings.
Let's do this. We have to give folks just a little taste. Let's play, Mel. Let's play this first clip. This is from the show in New York, I think, Like It Is, and just so folks can get a little bit of this is Gil Noble,
yes,
interviewing at the time H. Rap Brown with the show Like It Is.
Because Nick had a public forum, not because I articulated the sentiments better than the brothers on the streets or the brothers who didn't have that public forum. I don't think that you could articulate the sentiments of black people last year any better than they did in Detroit. So I think the movement is a leaderless movement, whereas we might influence people, we do not control people.
Well, how does this solidarity come about if there is no specific leader?
I think eventually there will. I think as the struggle progresses, see, revolution does not occur in one state. The masses of people become involved, then leaders are chosen. Right now, you have a vanguard struggle that's occurring, where by groups are fighting about discussing political ideologies which are relevant, which should be incorporated into the struggle, or will be incorporated into the struggle, because it's just a phase of evolution.
What about politics? Where do black people fit into the political spectrum right now? Or should they at all?
Well, politics as defined by the geographical and influential spheres of this country is irrelevant to black people and is irrelevant to the masses of people. The vote has been used as a tool of oppression against black people. I mean, Camus raises a very good point when he says, what better way to enslave a man than give him the vote and call him free? See, it does not profit black people or poor people anything. Now, how can you choose between Lyndon Johnson, Nixon, Agnew, Wallace, and Humphrey? There is no choice. Evil is evil. There's nothing in between that.
You know, Brother Saalakhan, I was 9 or 10 when I first saw when that aired. When I first saw that, and in watching it now, it just came to mind. I see why he had to go, because he was clear. He was so articulate. He's quoting Camus, well read. Seeing that now, I remember when I first saw it, I was 10 years old. And it resonated with me then, even though I didn't really understand all the dynamics of which he was speaking. I knew in that moment I was hearing what I needed to hear. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, one of the things that that stands out about Imam Jamil, as I refer to him, is that through all the phases of his development as an activist-oriented leader, through all of those phases, he was a man of integrity. Agree with him or not, you knew that you were dealing with a man who truly believed in what he was saying. He was committed to what he was espousing. And there was a there was a certain amount of dignified integrity to the former H. Rap Brown, as he was then, and the various phases that he ended up coming through or going through, as he eventually became the scholar and many of us would say activist-oriented spiritual leader, Imam Jamil Al Amin. He was this man of integrity, and so, you know, looking back, I too can understand why he was considered dangerous, why he became a target of COINTELPRO. I mean, his name was written in the document as one of the targets, and the drama that followed him throughout his adult life.
In listening to that clip and talking about the vote and his saying that the vote for black people was really irrelevant, some listening to that may say, wait, but it's important to understand Du Bois talked about that very same thing. I think it was 1954, why I won't vote. He was, and I connect those dots to demonstrate, and I say this to my students all the time. You've got to understand the lineage of thought that, you know, Dr. King didn't exist in a vacuum. Robeson didn't exist in a vacuum. Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, They didn't exist in vacuums. That they were part of a process, of a continuum. And only by reading can you then start to see the common threads. When you read, for example, Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail, there's Frederick Douglass there. But if you haven't done any reading, you wouldn't know this. And so people need to understand the Panthers started out as a group of brothers in Oakland at Merritt Community College that were reading revolutionary writers and thinkers. They didn't just throw on some berets, get some black leather jackets, and go out in the street and start raising hell. Your thoughts?
True. And which raises another very important point about Imam Jamil. Imam Jamil Al Amin, when you track his intellectual and activist oriented development over the years, you see a very interesting transition that he went through, a transition in thought and a transition in teaching and what he espoused, what he represented. As the young maverick H. Rap Brown, he was this fearless, activist-oriented leader who was not afraid to challenge the status quo in whatever way he felt it needed to be challenged in. He was one of the reasons why, for example, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, as it was originally known, ended up changing modifying its name to the Student National Coordinating Committee. Both he and Kwame Ture, then known as Stokely Carmichael, were factors in that transition. They were also factors in young activists rejecting the nonviolent approach to social change. You had these parallel movements going on during this very turbulent decade in American history, one of the most significant decades in this country's history. You had these parallel movements, and he and Kwame Ture and others, the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, these were all part and parcels, along with Dr. King, along with the NAACP, along with SCLC. They were all connected, to the struggle along different pathways. And in the case of Imam Jamil, and this is very important, when he embraced Islam, his methodology of struggle interpreted the need for struggle. It changed. He didn't become any less revolutionary than he had been before. In fact, many of us would argue that he became even more revolutionary, but with a clarity that he didn't have before his embrace of Islam and taking on a more spiritual view of the struggle that needed to take place in the United States and beyond. It's very interesting, but also very, very important to understand that transition that he made, and the moves that he made, and the impact that he had, not just where he ended up setting up shop after he got out of prison. He did that 5-year stint in New York. and he went and he established a community in Atlanta, Georgia, and that community became a trailblazer for some positive change in the city of Atlanta and beyond. And all of this came from the revolutionary change that he went through in terms of his ideological outlook and the approach that outlook coming through the prism of Islam led him to the path that he ended up walking upon as a result of that ideological transition that he went through.
The ideological transition that he went through, Robert Brown writes, the refusal to release him for compassionate purposes is again evidence of the fear of Black consciousness and unity. And Robert Brown, thank you so much for that super sticker. And, in reading that comment from Robert and in listening to you, Brother Saalakhan, I was in my mind drawing comparisons between Imam Jamil Al Amin and Haiti. And the comparison that I draw is Haiti, of course, the first and only successful revolution of its type, which the West has never been able to forgive Haiti for doing. Seeking freedom, achieving freedom for Black people is a crime they could never forgive. And nor could they ever forgive Imam Jamil Al Amin for his resistance to the status quo, for his challenging the orthodoxy. Even after he had done his time in New York, went to Atlanta, started a community, was doing nothing but good in the community, as you just articulated. No. Once they get you in their crosshairs, in their sights, they will not let you go until you rest.
So true. So very true. It was clear to me that Imam Jamil, as you just insinuated, he remained a targeted figure. He remained a targeted figure. In fact, Imam Jamil remains such a targeted figure that, and I'll never forget this. When the hearings, actually when the trial began, was it the hearings leading up to the trial or the trial itself? I'm thinking that it was when the trial itself began. I remember during one of the breaks, this was like on the first, second, or third day of the trial. During one of the breaks, a brother from the Atlanta, Georgia area and I, a member of Imam Jamil's community, we decided that we would pay a visit to the King Center. And my thought was, given the prominence of Coretta Scott King, who was still alive at the time, may God be pleased with her, if I could get her ear and just get her to agree to use her prominence to just call for a fair trial for Imam Jamil, just call for a fair trial. Not put her hand on the scale any more than that. Just call for a fair trial. And she was more than gracious. I mean, she invited the brother and I into her office when she became aware of our presence and what we were there for. She invited us into her office. We sat with her for about a good I'd say half hour. And during this glowing ways about Imam Jamil, the person that she had known for all those years, going back to the days of H. Rap Brown, and she spoke like many others that I met in the Atlanta area around that time, spoke about the enormous positive impact that he had on the West End of Atlanta. The condition that the West End was in before Imam Jamil established his community there, established the masjid, and then established a community that was comprised of many Muslims that were moving into the Atlanta area and moving into the West End in order to populate Islamically based community project that he wanted to establish. That, you know, and she just spoke in glowing terms, and she wasn't the only one. I met other leaders in the Atlanta area that did so as well. And without any hesitation, she said, "No problem at all. You come back tomorrow. I will have a letter for you." And when I came back the next day, she gave me the letter. I just wanted to be absolutely clear, on what we needed that letter for. Do I have your permission to make copies of it and give it to the media? Because of course the trial was covered by all of the media organizations and print and broadcast. Can I have your permission to make copies of this and give it to the media and give it to whoever else we feel would be of benefit to receive it? And she said, you have my permission without any problem. And we did that, and the very next day after we distributed Coretta Scott King's letter, just calling for a fair trial. I mean, that was the heart of the letter, just calling for a fair trial. She got attacked. Mm-hmm. She got attacked by some of the media. In fact, I remember the next day, there was an editorial in the Atlanta Journal criticizing her for interfering in a trial, for interfering in a trial of this magnitude. And
well, she was interfering.
Yeah, that's right. She
was interfering because they were on a mission.
Yes, indeed.
And fairness and justice had the fact. Please don't confuse me with the facts. Mm-hmm. I'm on a mission. Mm-hmm. And so she was interfering in the mission. But I'm sorry, continue.
Yes. And indeed she was interfering, but without bias. She was interfering in a very objective way. Mm-hmm. She wasn't putting her hand on the scale to say, I believe this man is innocent. I mean, she said to me that she didn't believe the accusations that were brought in. I mean, I remember her words being that what he is accused of, and I heard this so many times in different ways by prominent and not so prominent folk who knew Imam Jamil Al Amin, what he's accused of just flies in the face of the man that I've known all these years. Mm-hmm. And for Coretta Scott King, it goes back to the days when her husband was alive and doing his work as one of the major civil rights leaders in the country. And Imam Jamil was this young firebrand known as H. Rap Brown. She's known him ever since then. And she said, no, what he's been accused of, it just doesn't comport with what the man that I've known all these years. And so she didn't put her hand on the scale. She didn't just come out and say, I don't believe these charges. What she said was, give him a fair trial, make sure the trial is a fair trial, so that at the end of the day, when everything has been said and done, irrespective of which way the jury decides, we can be at peace with that decision. Give him a fair trial. And then years later, and this is very important because it connects. It's directly related. Many years later, I guess you would, this has this sordid case is 25 years old. All right. About 5 years ago, I had a meeting. It was a chance encounter. We both happened to be at the National Press Club in downtown Washington, D.C. at the same time for different events. I was there for a press conference, and former Ambassador Andrew Young, also a civil rights icon, also someone who knew Imam Jamil from way back when he was H. Rab Brown. We just happened to be there at the same time. And when I saw him, I asked if I could speak with him for a moment. He invited me to sit down. This was during I guess a break in both of our events, and he was sitting in the lounge of the National Press Club, and I just happened to see him. So I walked up and I asked if I could just speak with him for a moment. He invited me to sit down. We ended up having this maybe 15 to 20-minute conversation about Imam Jamil. He said basically the same thing that Coretta Scott King said. My ask of him was, is there anything that you can do to help, with your influence, with you being the person that you are in the state of Georgia and beyond, former mayor, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Is there anything that you can do to help us get a fair re-examination of Imam Jamil's situation, his case? And without any hesitation whatsoever, he said that he knew some people in the state attorney's office, and he would do what he could do because he too felt like Coretta Scott King felt what she expressed. The man that I know, and especially the man that became this peace stabilizing icon for the city of Atlanta, and especially for the West End. Just this flies in the face of the man I've known all these years. And I don't believe that he did what they accused him of doing. And he ended up fulfilling his word, doing what he could with the Fulton County State's Attorney's Office to get a re-examination of the trial. In fact, I'll never forget, he ended up speaking at the State's Attorney's Office had this special event for this new this new office that they were opening within the office for re-examining cases where there were serious questions about the validity of the prosecutions. And he was invited to be the keynote speaker for their flagship event that was held on the property that's owned by the the brother who is the well-known actor and
the director with the that does the, I know you're talking about.
He's done a number of movies, African American. Yeah.
It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a very large and impressive piece of property that he owns, and they have special events there. So this and Andrew Young was invited to be the keynote speaker, and during his keynote speech, he raised the issue of Imam Jamil and expressed his belief that Imam Jamil was innocent of what he had been accused of, what he had been found guilty of.
Tyler Perry.
He believed he was innocent. Excuse me?
Tyler Perry.
Yes, Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry Studios. And so that reference that he made in his speech, that inclusion in his speech, did get some things moving. But subhanAllah, at the end of the day, when all things were said and done, while this new office within the state's attorney's office not having the courage, that's what it came down to. They didn't have the courage to follow through and do the right thing, because they had plenty of substantive ammunition to go with. They had plenty of evidence to go with. You know, they
even had some of the witnesses recounting their testimony.
Isn't that something?
Absolutely.
Isn't that something?
Let's Mel, let's run that second clip, please, of H. Rap Brown. Let's run that because folks, you need to go back to YouTube and listen to this, brother, because let's see if we can pull this up. And while we're waiting, you know, you made the point about going through phases. You made this point earlier in the conversation about going through phases. And Mel, just run it when you can pull it up. And one of the mistakes that we often make, I think, as a community, is we don't allow our leaders to grow.
Nonviolence in certain situations, then it has been policy to be nonviolent. But in terms of self-defense, we've always had a strong position that individuals are given the God-given right to defend themselves. And what's more, they're protected within the framework of the law to protect themselves. When white people participate in the movement, you know, they should participate on a level that they civilize the other element of that white community. Now, because it's not a thing where they're helping black people welfare commodity. Freedom is something that has to be gotten and taken by the people who are oppressed. I don't think there is any organizational differences and philosophical concepts. I think we're going to proceed along the lines of organization that we began. And that's
philosophical differences with Mr. Carmichael.
Not that I know of, and if I did, I would tell you.
That's that right there. That right. So I don't know if you saw Mayor-elect Mamdani on Meet the Press on Sunday.
No, I missed that.
Okay,
but I'm very impressed with Mamdani. He's a sharp brother.
Kirsten Welker tried her best to bait him into a discussion. Well, I'll paraphrase that. You'd get the Zelensky treatment, and he stayed on his message.
Yes.
And she came at him, I think, at least twice with that question, and he just smiled and said, "Well, I went to the White House to do the following." Well, what about the tension between? Well, my purpose for going. So I'm just drawing the parallel between at the time, H. Rap Brown saying, if I had differences, I wouldn't tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
more of our leaders need to understand that mindset.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
You had you have a comparison of two very disciplined thinkers,
mm-hmm.
and activist-oriented strategists, and individuals of good character. Certainly, this is the case with Imam Jamil. I know this from many years of knowing him. He is a man of character, and from what I've seen thus far over the past year of Zoran Mamdani, and of some pretty good moral discipline as well. So, yeah.
And you use two powerful operative terms: discipline and thinker. Both of those things are incredibly and for as we mourn the passing of Imam Jamil Al Amin, we must remember Mumia Abu Jamal.
Absolutely.
We are thankful that finally Leonard Peltier found freedom,
yes,
but he found himself in a similar circumstance for an ungodly number of years. So there are a number of political prisoners. For as much as we want to claim that that Putin is an authoritarian and Maduro is an authoritarian and Xi Jinping, what is more authoritarian than keeping nonviolent political prisoners in prison, especially those whom you have trumped up charges, and won't allow the reevaluation of those cases, as many of the witnesses have recanted their testimony.
And in addition to the recantation of testimony, in addition to that, I mean, we have a principal figure, Otis Jackson, who has been to the gunfight, who shot the two sheriff's deputies. In addition to this, we have evidence such as the alleged weapon that was supposed to have been recovered when Imam Jamil was arrested in Alabama. You have the testimony of one of the officers, in fact, the officer that survived, that he shot the assailant. He shot the assailant, and there was, initially the reports were that there was a blood trail that led from the point of confrontation to a house just up the block. There was a blood trail, and then later when Imam Jamil was taken into custody, and they, to their shock and amazement, had no gunshot wounds, then they had to come up with an explanation for the blood trail that led from the point of confrontation to the house, but then you also have Otis Jackson, who confessed to being the person who got into the gunfight, telling them, that I had to get treated for a gunshot wound. And so, there were just so many things. There were so many irregularities to the case, and even the way the case was tried, the way that they ended up violating Imam Jamil's constitutional rights in the way that the prosecutor engaged in his closing argument, in impugning Imam Jamil for exercising his right to refuse. he refused to participate in the trial to the extent that he could. He didn't testify in his own defense.
And he didn't have to.
He didn't have to, according to the Constitution. But the lead prosecutor, he made that an issue. He hammered Imam Jamil on that to the
and that's been grounds for dismissal.
It should have
because
been.
That's an improper direction to the jury. The judge, first of all, should have stopped it because you do not, hence the Fifth Amendment. You do not have to speak in court. In fact, one of the because the Comey thing that I talked about in the beginning of the discussion today, I'm pretty sure it's the Comey case. He's been attacked. He's been arguing his. Okay, now I got it. He's been arguing the charges against him on a couple of different fronts, and one of the fronts is that the indictment was improperly secured because the prosecutor during the grand jury made reference to he has not come out and provided any evidence of his innocence, and that's an improper statement of law. So just to again, we've got to connect those dots.
Right. And in the case of Imam Jamil, the appeals court, and I was there for the appeals arguments, and the appeals court recognized the flagrant violation of Imam Jamil's constitutional rights. But at the end of the day, they decided that it wasn't flagrant enough to, justify a new trial. SubhanAllah, it's, man. I mean, they had it. Imam Jamil was a target for many years. I mean, that's the bottom line. He was the COINTELPRO target for many years, and that targeting of Imam Jamil was generational.
Yes, it was. There's no question about that. We've got one more clip, and this is a clip of Imam Jamil Al Amin to show the phases, to show development. So let's Mel, let's
show our guest today is a very special guest. He is Imam Jamil Abdullah Al Amin, formerly H. Rap Brown. He's with us today from Atlanta, where he is now a Muslim minister. Welcome. I guess probably the way to get to the discussion is just to simply ask you, Jamil Al Amin, whatever happened to H. Rap Brown?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I seek refuge in Allah from shaitan, the accursed. I begin with the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. I seek refuge in Allah from misleading and from being misled, from betraying and being betrayed into ignorance by others. I think that the question is rhetorical in the sense that whatever happened to anyone else, if they're still living, there's a reflection either of growth or a kind of deterioration going backward. I think Islam in my life represents a kind of a sense of growth. In the 60s, most people were familiar with me as a result of the movement. And in the 60s, the movement was essentially around human rights. I think Islam is a platform, it is a program in which Allah has enabled us to have a better sense of what human rights are about, and how to bring about the human rights.
Now, your message, at least the message that we were getting through the media, the mass media, was burn this town down or whatever, and especially since you were rather close to our own community of Cambridge, Maryland. What is your message today?
The Muslim's message is that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Speaking of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who lived 1400 years ago, who was an Arab by birth, but who Allah says is a messenger that was sent for all mankind. Again, the platform of human rights deals within the fact that we understand and we believe that there is a creator, that a creator has created man and has not left him without guidance. Tactically, in the 60s, the message was not only a thing of just burn or destruction, but it was a kind of idea or thought of, if there is no redress of grievance, then people have a right to express themselves or to try and bring about a situation whereby, you know, their grievance can be met, you know, in a fashion, in a fashion where they would be satisfied. It's not just blindly burning and looting as it was projected. I think that image was projected for a certain reason, but in fact, I don't think that was the case, and nor is it the case in any struggle or revolution historically.
I want to remind all of our listeners at home and viewers at home that you can join our discussion by calling us at 481-1313, and you can talk to Imam Al Amin. I think it is important, however, for a whole generation of people who really don't know who H. Rap Brown was, before we learn a little bit more about who Jamil Al Amin is, that we just briefly recap some things from the 60s. During the 60s, I guess you first came to notoriety as the chairman of the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. And in that role, you were first perceived, I guess, in terms of national publicity in Cambridge, doing shortly before making a 45-minute speech, shortly before the town, 2 square blocks of the town were burned down. What was your actual role in that?
I was invited to Cambridge. Cambridge had a history of, for lack of a better word, of racial disturbances. Even before I came into Cambridge, the school had been burnt at least 2 weeks before. I spoke in Cambridge, and after speaking in Cambridge, there was a crowd of African Americans who attended the speech of the rally. There was a lady who wanted to be escorted home, and in doing so, we went across the Ray Street. There's a street in Cambridge known as Ray Street. And in escorting the lady home, and it was not only myself, but a crowd of people, you know, I was ambushed by the police. In other words, they opened fire on us. I was shot.
You were actually hit?
Yes, I was. I was shot. And from that point, taken to the infirmary. At that point, nothing had happened. From leaving the infirmary, you know, I left town. The next day, I saw on TV that I was indicted. I had been indicted for inciting to riot, and that people had burned Cambridge. Cambridge wasn't that much to burn anyway.
Okay, we'd like to continue our discussion.
Folks, you need to spend some time and go back and listen to this brother, because he was special. He was Brother Saalakhan, your thoughts.
Indeed, he was special, brother. And you know, I'm just sitting here looking at that last piece of videotape that you just showed, and you know, I was just thinking to myself, you know, this brother has been missed, not just in the Atlanta, Georgia area, but he has been missed throughout the United States among people that know him, both Muslims and non-Muslims. He has been missed for the past 25 years. And the thought that he is now permanently gone, someone so special, someone who had given so much to helping America, discover the better part of itself. And then looking at the man that he had evolved into, the leader he had evolved into, in the lives, the many lives that Imam Jamil touched, north, south, east, and west, both in the United States and abroad. And to think that this brother of ours has been taken away from us for no just cause, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. But you know, like Imam Jamil Al Amin, I am a man of faith. I believe without any question that there is a God and that there is a day of accountability. I believe that there is a life beyond this life, and both in terms of that life beyond this life, and I believe that Imam Jamil, given the stellar nature of his character as I knew him, I believe he's in good stead in the afterlife. I believe that he is in good stead. But for us here, I have to comfort myself with, the words of that Syrian poet who said, the blood of a martyr is not an ordinary blood. It transfuses itself into the life of a people and energizes them. Imam Jamil Al Amin, the former H. Rap Brown, he will not be forgotten. He has a legacy that goes far and deep. And that legacy will continue to touch folks who know about him and those who learn about him.
Brother El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan, where can people, those that are interested in your work, in your efforts, where do people go to learn more about your work in the Washington, D.C. area and nationally? Where do they go? Well, we our website is www.afia.org, and my email address, I'll give you the easier of the two: peace through justice, and the through is THRU, peace through THRU justice at AOL.com. You can reach me via email there, and I would be more than happy with the energy that this gray-haired man still has left in his body to continue to travel to different places and engage my brothers and sisters, and especially young folk with from all tribes, with information that will be both informative and inspiring, within the realm of human rights advocacy. We're concerned about so much that is going on right now, the things that are taking place here that are off the charts in terms of, gross violations of what are supposed to be constitutional rights and universally understood human rights. I'm very concerned. A very special part of our advocacy work is, political prisoners. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there is a political prisoner that I would like to mention here in closing, and that is a sister, a young sister. Oh, she's still young. She's a lot younger than Imam Jamil. But she's in her early 50s now. Her name is Afia Siddiqui. A sister that came to the United States from Pakistan when she was just 18 years of age, and graduated with honors from MIT and Brandeis. Was known for her extracurricular human rights oriented activities, and for her wanting her interests and fire for spreading the message of Islam, which is what got her into trouble with the Zionists at those institutions in Boston. And she's been imprisoned wrongfully for the past 22 years. After graduating from these universities and going back home to Pakistan. I mean, if the United States really felt that she was a quote unquote terrorist threat, all they had to do was say, you can't come back into the United States again. Mm-hmm. But no, they engaged in a kidnapping operation, rendition, like with so many others. And, the rest is, it's just sad. It's a sad saga. I mean, her baby child, when the kidnapping took place, was killed we believe the 6-month-old was killed in the kidnapping operation, and the two older children at the time they were ages
4 and 6. I mean, they were separated. One was adopted by an American family in Afghanistan, and the boy was in a children's detention center, a child's jail, and and they were in this state for a number of years before they ended up being rescued, returned back to their home where they belong. But their mother never has remained in the United States on a military reserve base in Fort Worth, Texas, and it's just it is a case that the late former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark, one of the most dignified men to ever hold office in the United States, in my view, he said of her case, "It is the worst case of individual injustice I have ever witnessed." And he said, when he said these words, I was with him, and they echoed how I felt about the case. They echoed, and this was the former U.S. Attorney General, then in his 70s, and having been in government as the U.S. Attorney General, as the Assistant Attorney General during the Kennedy administration, the full Attorney General during the Johnson administration. After leaving government, traveling throughout the world as a human rights oriented advocate, trying to improve the U.S. behavior in its international relations with other countries, and standing firm on issues. This was a man who had seen and experienced much. And he said of the case of Afia Siddiqui, he said, "This is the worst case of individual injustice I have ever witnessed." And I feel the same way. So we have a lot of political prisoners. We have a lot of political prisoners that we must be concerned about, and we must help this country live up to the better part of itself before it's too late.
Brother El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan, thank you again for your time today. Thank you for your work and for joining me. Greatly appreciate it. Look forward to having you back.
It's been my pleasure, brother. Thank you very much for having me back. May God bless you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
And your work.
Thank you. And yours as well. Folks, thanks to Brother Saalakhan for his time today. Thank you all so much for joining me today. We're going to be off for the rest of the week, and I got to spend some time with the family. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a best of run from Tuesday through Friday. So we won't be live, but we will be here, and you'll be able to catch up on some shows and some interviews that you may not have been able to catch, particularly early in the game. So wishing all of you a safe and happy holiday, no matter what angle in which or what direction in which you decide to pursue it, even if it's no more than what we're going to do. And that's just huddle as a family and enjoy the time off and enjoy each other. So with that, I wish you all peace and blessings, safety during the week. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, and we'll see you next week. Please support these efforts. We need more of you all to sign up to the program. And with that, peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.